Ma tovu alecha Yaakov, mishkanotecha Yisrael. How lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. Each morning, as we enter the sanctuary, we recite this famous verse from this morning's Parsha. This prayer is the opening section of Birkot HaShachar, the morning blessings, and it consists of several biblical verses that express our joy of coming into the sanctuary. This week's Parsha tells the story of Balak, king of Moab, and Balaam, a sorcerer, who was not Jewish. When Balak sees that the Israelites' victory over the Amorites, he's alarmed, fearing that the Israelites are too powerful to defeat in battle. He sends for Balaam and instructs that he curse the Israelites. At first, God forbids Balaam to accept this mission, but later God allows him to agree if he agrees to follow God's commands. Balaam tells Balak to build 7 altars, and Balak does as he's told by Balaam. And they sacrifice a ram and a bull on each of those altars. Then Balaam attempts to curse the Israelites, and instead blesses them. Balak becomes enraged at Balaam's blessings of the Israelites, and he takes Balaam to 2 other places, and he attempts for him to curse Israel each time. But in each place, when he opens his mouth to curse the people, only blessings emerge. Why did God prevent Balaam from cursing the Israelites? Was it necessary to turn that curse into a blessing? Our rabbis taught that Balaam did not have it in his power to either bless or curse. The blessing was redundant. God had already blessed the people, and therefore the curse was ineffective. Why then did God prevent him from cursing? Because God did not want other nations to see that Balaam's curse caused the sins and the punishments of the Israelites in the future. It's important to note that among ancient and primitive people, a curse was more than an expressed wish for evil. It was also considered a method of transmitting such harmful efforts into reality. The Babylonians believed in the power of curses and relied on professional sorcerers to curse their enemies before battle. The Israelites also believed in curses. Even God was troubled by Balaam's potential actions and decided to compel him to bless the Israelites instead. In this way, the Torah reflects the serious nature of blessings and curses. And then the rabbis placed Ma Tovu at the beginning of each and every morning service as a way to help us step outside of our everyday lives and transition into the prayer space. When we recite the words of Ma Tovu as we enter into a sanctuary, it reminds us that Balaam too approached the Israelites with a different mindset, with the intention to curse, not to bless. And so too, the words of Ma Tovu serve as a vehicle of transition. I know that I often rush into services on a weekday, sometimes even on Shabbat, with much on my mind. The stresses of the day, the worries of life, the tragic events that continue to eat at this world, and anything else that constantly is on my mind. I imagine I'm not alone with this, with those thoughts and distractions as we enter in to a sanctuary. As a result of this, we, and I know I certainly, enter prayer with the wrong mindset. We are overwhelmed and not in the mood to always be ready to offer blessings and prayers to God. But with the words, Ma tovu alecha Yaakov, mishkanotecha Yisrael. How lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. May we be like Balaam and hear the words of God so that we too can turn those curses, those distractions that that are part of our mind into the blessings that are part of prayer. With this understanding, the essence of Ma Tovu becomes a vehicle to distance ourselves from our everyday lives and enter into the realm of holiness and spirituality. Ma Tovu was the rabbi's method of achieving the state of consciousness. But in today's world, it does not need to be the only way to make this transition. The essence of the morning service begins with the words of the Baruch Hu. But before this, as we just did, we recite Pesukei de Zimra, which is often referred to as the warm-up, the preparation for the service. It offers many praises of God and helps us to move into the mindset for the true prayer section of our service. Ma Tovu begins that section. The developmental psychologist Howard Gardner proposed the theory of multiple intelligences in 1983. His theory shows that human beings are best suited to learn based on different types of intelligence. Today, it's believed that there are 8 basic types of intelligences. They are spatial, linguistic, logical, mathematical, bodily, kinesthetic, musical, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and naturalistic. While Gardner's theory has been met with some mixed responses over the decades, it's hard to argue that there's not at least some truth to it. Most of us can learn in any setting, but I think it's clear that each of us have at least one preferred way of learning material. Do you learn best when listening to someone lecture, watching someone do the activity, and you model them? Are you a numbers person, and you could put any number in front of you and figure out how to solve the equation? We can apply this theory to prayer as well. The traditional text of Ma Tovu may have worked for the rabbis, and it still works for many of us as the avenue to transfer us from our everyday life to the prayer mindset. But what about those of us who find it easier to move into this mindset to pray to God with a different modality? As I look at this study and study different meditative and communal practices from around the world, I recognize there are incredible ways for us to adapt these practices and help our Jewish communities create different mindsets and avenues for entering prayer. I've attended a few Shabbat retreats where before the traditional Shabbat morning service, there was a variety of different activities in order to help each of us connect with God. For the musical learner, there was a chanting session where participants chanted different Jewish texts and songs in order to find their mindset to fully be able to enter prayer. For the bodily kinesthetic learner, there was yoga. For some, taking a few minutes to just walk in nature was all it took for that transition. When I was just at camp for 2 weeks, I saw this practice put into work each and every morning. Campers and staff tried different creative ways to move the campers from the realities and distractions of camp into a few minutes of holy prayer space. I saw campers on paddle boards, using that to move them to their prayer dwelling. And they literally prayed sitting on paddle boards in the middle of the lake. There was a group that was in the woods, silent, and then drawing what they saw in the woods as a way to move them to be able to pray to God. And there was groups that gathered and sang beautiful, wordless melodies and some text together as a way of all coming together shortly after to enter the core of the prayer service. Didn't matter where they all were, it all shared the same goal: to move all of us into the ability to pray to God. Prayer can begin in so many different ways. While camps regularly embrace these ideas, most of the Jewish world is hesitant to adapt secular ways to our worship. However, that is exactly what happened with Tovu. The rabbis took the words that were uttered by Balaam, somebody outside of our Jewish camp, and inserted them at the very beginning of our prayer service as a way for us to be able to reach God with that proper mindset. I encourage each of us to find the method that best allows us to enter prayer and try to make that part of our warm-up service before Shachrit. When each of us find our best method, then we will truly fulfill the words, Ma tovu alecha Yaakov, mishkanotecha Yisrael. How lovely are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. And we will be prepared to fully enter the holiness and the mindset of prayer and God. Shabbat Shalom.